Autonomic nervous system control almost all viscera in our body, and hence the disease of autonomic nervous system will affect the quality of life. In this video, I am going to tell you some of the diseases of autonomic nervous system and their pathophysiology. Hey everyone, welcome back to HM Learnings. I am Harshita, the creator of HM Learnings, where students come to clear their concept and to get the study material. Make sure that you have subscribed my channel. You can also follow HM Learnings on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for daily updates. We have also started uploading all our slides on a website called as SlideShare. You can download and clip the slides on that website. Recently, we have started online physiology classes which are live sessions. It will be taken by me, so you can ask me directly your doubts. To know more, you can contact us on this email ID or on our official pages. So now we move on to the topic, that is the diseases of the autonomic nervous system. In that we will talk first about the diseases of the sympathetic nervous system. In that we are talking about the two diseases of the sympathetic nervous system, that is the Horner syndrome and the Raynaud syndrome. So first we talk about the Horner syndrome. So Horner syndrome is a disease which occurs when there is injury to the sympathetic tract going towards the face. Now, if there is an injury anywhere along the course of this innervation to the face, there will be manifestation of Horner syndrome. So for that, we need to know that what is the pathway taken by the sympathetic fibers to go to the eyes. So the sympathetic fibers which are moving towards the eyes, they get their inputs from the higher center, and this higher center neurons will get terminate in T1 to T3 intermediolateral horns, and from there the preganglionic sympathetic fiber will start. This preganglionic sympathetic fiber will enter the sympathetic chain, ascend upward and form a synapse with the postganglionic sympathetic neuron in the superior cervical sympathetic ganglion. From here, the postganglionic sympathetic neuron will start forming a plexus around the internal carotid artery called as pericarotid plexus. Now this plexus, or you can say the nerve from here, will enter the skull and passing through the cavernous sinus to finally enter into the orbit. In the orbit, it will supply the following things: superior tarsal muscle, that is also called as a Mueller muscle, which actually uplifts the upper eyelid. Inferior tarsal muscle innervates the inferior eyelid, orbitalis, dilator pupillae, sweat glands and the blood vessel. So it means that whenever there is injury to the sympathetic nervous system going towards the face, these organs will be get, or you can say these tissues will be get affected. Also, if there is injury anywhere along the course, like if there is injury to the pericarotid plexus, or suppose there is injury to the superior cervical ganglion, there could be manifestation of Horner syndrome. So from this we can easily write the causes of the Horner syndrome. The first cause is like if there is malignancy of the cervical lymph nodes that passes on to the cervical sympathetic chain. Here the superior cervical ganglion is present, so it can infect the superior cervical ganglion. Next is the Pancoast tumor, which is a tumor of the apex portion of the lung. Multiple myeloma can affect the central nervous system. Syringomyelia is a disease which happens on the spinal cord, and there could be traction of the cervical rim which can affect the sympathetic tract in the cervical portion. Another thing is the injury to the carotid artery that can cause the injury to the pericarotid plexus. Now, what are the clinical features? The clinical features will be as following. Number one is the ptosis. Ptosis occurs because there is paralysis of the superior tarsal muscle or the mural muscle. As a result, there will be dropping of the upper eyelid as shown in this figure. Meiosis is a condition in which there is constriction of the pupil, and this occurs because there is paralysis of the dilator pupillae. Dilator pupillae has a function to dilate the pupil, and this muscle is innervated by the sympathetic fibers. As there is injury to the sympathetic fibers in the case of Horner syndrome, this muscle get paralyzed and there will be constriction of pupil. Anhidrosis, as we have seen that the sympathetic fibers also innervate the sweat gland. So as there is no sympathetic innervation, there will be no sweating on that side of the face. Blushing or flushing is a condition which occurs because of the cutaneous vasodilation, and the person will appear pink. This is because the sympathetic vasoconstrictor effect will get lost as there is sympathetic fibers are not active or they are injured. So with this, we move on to the another syndrome of the sympathetic nervous system, that is the Raynaud phenomena. Raynaud phenomenon is a disease which occurs due to the hyperactivity of the sympathetic vasoconstrictor fibers. These are actually affecting the arteries which are going to the peripheries, like to the fingers, tips of the nose, toes, ears, and the penis. So because of that, because there is excessive vasoconstriction, these areas get depleted from the blood supply. This is basically a bilateral disorder, means it will be manifested on both the sides of the body. It is precipitated in the winter, that is in the cold season, and by the smoking. The clinical features show that there is a triphasic change in the color of the skin of the digits. Why? First is the pallor color. Pallor color or the pale color is because there is vasospasm. There is no blood supply to these organs because of the hyperactivity of the sympathetic nervous system or the sympathetic vasoconstrictor fibers. The second change which happens is the cyanosis. Cyanosis, why? Because of the deposition or because of the excess of the deoxyhemoglobin in the blood, because all the oxygen will be taken up by the tissues at that time, because the fresh blood is not coming, and there will be intense pain due to the reduced blood flow. After this, there will be a third clinical feature which is seen, is the redness and the swelling. So there is redness and the swelling because there is excessive increase in the capillary permeability, which is mediated by the local metabolites released in response to hypoxia. So there is swelling because there is increase in the capillary permeability, and there is redness because of the increase in the blood flow. So this is a triphasic change in the color, which is basically a cycle happening in the patient suffering from the Raynaud phenomena. So with this, we have completed the diseases of the sympathetic nervous system. Now we move on to the diseases of the parasympathetic nervous system. In this also, we are talking only about the two diseases which occurs when there is disease of the parasympathetic nervous system, and they are affecting the pupil. Okay, so number one is the Arrigal-Robertson pupil, and the number two is the atonic pupil. So first we talk about the Arrigal-Robertson pupil. So in this disease, what happens is that there is injury to the pretectal nucleus of the midbrain. Okay, so now here we have to understand that in the eye, there are basically two things which are happening. Number one is the accommodation reaction, and number two is the pupillary light reflex. The accommodation reaction doesn't involve the pretectal nucleus. Means what? Means that the pathway of the accommodation reflex or the accommodation reaction does not involve pretectal nucleus, and hence when there is injury to pretectal nucleus in the Arrigal-Robertson pupil, there will be no defect in the accommodation reflex. The accommodation reflex will be perfectly fine. But when we look at the pupillary light reflex pathway, the pretectal nucleus is involved in that case, and hence when there is injury to pretectal nucleus in the Arrigal-Robertson pupil, there will be absence of the pupillary light reflex. Now what is this pupillary light reflex and how it happens? For that we need to look at the physiology of eye. So pupillary light reflex is basically the ability of light to respond to eye, and this is mediated by change in the diameter of the pupil. So how it happens and what is the role of the pretectal nuclei in this? The pretectal nucleus, in the case in the normal condition, when there is no injury to the midbrain, when there is no injury to pretectal nucleus, it is always inhibitory to the adrenal vestibule nucleus. Okay, this adrenal vestibule nucleus is actually a nucleus of our oculomotor nerve, and this oculomotor nerve, or you can say through this oculomotor nerve, the ganglionic fibers of the parasympathetic nervous system will travel. They will reach the ganglion called as the ciliary ganglion, and then from the ciliary ganglion, the short ciliary nerves, that is the post ganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers, will travel and go to sphincter pupillae. Okay, so what happens in a normal condition is that the pretectal nucleus is always inhibitory to this nucleus of the oculomotor nerve. So what happens? This nucleus will not be able to send any impulse through the oculomotor nerve, and hence the sphincter pupillae will not constrict. Means the pupil will not constrict under the normal conditions. But what happens when the light falls? When the light falls, this inhibition will be lost. Means the light will actually inhibit the pretectal nucleus, and this inhibition will be lost. And now here, this nucleus will send the impulse to the oculomotor nerve finally to the sphincter pupillae and cause the constriction of pupillae. Hence there will be pupillary light reflex which will be manifested. But when there is injury to this pretectal nucleus, this inhibition will be permanently lost. Okay, so even in the normal condition, as the inhibition is lost, the pupil of that person will always remain constricted, as well as the pupillary light reflex will also be absent. The person will not able to respond to change in the light, as there is injury to pretectal nucleus and there is loss of inhibition by that nucleus to the adrenal vestibule nucleus of the oculomotor nerve. Okay, so I hope you understand this thing. Now this is a diagram which is showing the thing which I have already told you, that in the accommodation reflex, the pretectal nucleus is not involved, but in the case of the light reflex, pupillary light reflex, the pretectal nucleus is involved. This is a diagram showing that this is a normal pupil, and what happens when there is accommodation. So during the accommodation, there is little constriction of the pupil. There will be movement of the eyeballs towards the midline, as well as there will be increase in the curvature of the lens. These all are called as the accommodation reaction. In the case of the pupillary light reflex, you can see here that the pupil gets constricted, and this is called as a pupillary light reflex. Okay, so what are the clinical features you are going to see in this disease is that the accommodation reaction will be present, but the pupillary light reflex, the accommodation reaction will be present, but the ability of the pupil to respond to light will be lost, as well as the pupil will always remain in the constricted form. Okay. Now we move on to the another disease which is called as the adiatonic pupil. So adiatonic pupil occurs when there is suppression of the parasympathetic ocular function. Means the functions of the eye which are regulated by the parasympathetic nervous system, they get suppressed. So we know that the accommodation is actually mediated by the parasympathetic nervous system, as well as the light reflex is mediated by the parasympathetic nervous system. So both this get delayed or even get diminished. Also there will be delayed pupil dilation in the darkness. Okay, so with this we reach at the end of this video. If you like this video, please like, share and comment, and my request is to you that you can please write your suggestions in the comment box for the upcoming videos. Any topic you want me to present for you, you can write it down in the comment section. Okay, so with this, please follow HM Learnings on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. You can also get the slides on the SlideShare, as well as you can contact us for the live classes of physiology. Till then, keep learning.